We have to move along to the next session. It's our final session today, and I will be chairing it. My name is Ktori. I'm a maritime archaeologist from Cyprus and a forensic practitioner, two roles. Today, we're having with us Ms. Ulrike Guérin from UNESCO. She's a legal expert with over 2 decades of experience working in the Secretariat of the UNESCO 2001 Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. It is the first presentation for this session today. Ms. Guérin has a very strong commitment to advancing cultural heritage preservation and protection, and her expertise lies in assisting states in developing effective policy approaches and drafting laws. She also coordinates international assistance missions, which is very important in our world, especially during these last few crises it has faced. Throughout her career, Ulrike has played a pivotal role in facilitating capacity building initiatives, empowering nations to safeguard their cultural heritage for future generations, another important issue that we hope every country addresses. Her deep understanding of the UNESCO 2001 Convention and international underwater archaeology initiatives, coupled with her experience and her extensive network of global partners, enables her to foster fruitful collaborations and drive positive change in the field of cultural heritage preservation. Thank you, Ulrike, for joining us today, and we're ready to hear your presentation. You may turn on your camera if you like, and of course, share your screen with your PowerPoint presentation.
Do you see me?
Of course.
Yes,
Welcome.
good, very good. And I mean, a very warm hello to everyone that I already know, and of course also those that I just see the first time. I see that some have found the way back to Portugal. I would have loved to see you to follow the previous presentations, but I didn't understand a word. So I see that I definitely still have to improve my Portuguese. I was just guessing my way along when Felipe was talking about, the horrible treasure hunters. So that one I understood. And I think, you gave us the introductory title for this session, virtual museums, while I had actually said global things. So I marry my presentation.
We put those two themes together because a lot of what you do ties in with the new virtual reality where we have been launched in the 21st century. And from the Cypriot perspective, from my personal experience, virtual museums is the way nowadays to go when wanting to safeguard and promote heritage. Everyone is attached to a tablet or a laptop screen. So there you go.
I hope to be able to manage, to get this here up and running, my little presentation. And I'm beginning at the end. That is interesting. So do you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. I thought I bring you all some news and what is going on in the UN level and what are the latest, discussions and all these kind of things and what we have, somehow as chances. It's also, I mean, a very nice occasion to have you, let's say the Lusophone people here, even if Cyprus, of course, doesn't fall under that. But I, spoke yesterday to the Portuguese delegation at UNESCO and I thought like, yeah, we should actually do something for, the Portuguese speakers, because we have been somehow a little bit slow in that one. You will have not missed that there's quite, a discussion ongoing on the international level about these major challenges that we have: climate change, ocean challenges, marine spatial planning, marine protected areas, UN ocean decay, UN ocean conferences, pollution, World War II wrecks and the fuel in there. I basically get every day another consultation from the UN Secretary General on my table that is not necessarily asking me for the last Underwater Heritage Museum, but on the latest news on the unexploded ordnance. So there is a lot of discussion out there. We also know already, and actually the 2001 Convention is lodged in this moment in the Secretariat for Culture and Emergencies. We already know that we will have major losses of heritage due to climate change. Right? We had only this week a presentation from Tanzania, Kilwa Kiswani, And they said, like, 2 years ago, look what nice picture I took and what you see out of my window. And it was quite shocking. You know, we have, you know, whole heritage sites disappearing into the ocean. And we know already where this will happen and what will happen. So it's not that this is not predictable. It's not that we can't do anything. So there is quite a discussion, you know, what to do. But somehow in this discussion, underwater cultural heritage has been largely absent. In what concerns, you know, the heritage people, they speak about terrestrial heritage, and what concerns the ocean people, they somehow talk about fish. You know, so that is somehow where we find ourselves. While of course we all know, and I mean, I speak, you know, I'm preaching to the converted, that there is a very, very large heritage out there that actually would have a lot of data to offer, and not only data, but also beauty and, you know, enjoyment. But there is quite a barrier, you know, on the beach. When you go to the various heritage sites that are on the coast, they stop at the beach. And when you go to the underwater heritage sites, they also seem not to go to, you know, to the land. So there is quite, you know, these kind of distinction made, and still, you know, when you add water, then it becomes something entirely different. What is a problem? And we have tried to figure out, and we had 20 years to do so. The 2001 convention now is, you know, older than 20 years already. So we have tried to figure out what we can do. Of course, there is the issue of lacking laws. There is the issue of lacking capacities. We don't have enough underwater ecologists, but we also have a very low visibility of underwater cultural heritage. It's basically people look at the ocean's surface. And we also have the ocean sciences basically working all alone without any cultural aspects. When you go, for instance, to the new High Seas Treaty, the BBNG that just comes out is not yet fully adopted and not even yet signed. You put the word culture in there and you can look, right? There is, you know, in the last little phrase, a little mention, yeah, cultural aspect, and maybe only indigenous, because anything else, you know, didn't make it to the discussions. That is very problematic. And honestly, I mean, Philippe, I love it when you are angry about the treasure hunters. And of course, we are angry with you and always fighting the way long. And I will tell you what we just did to get, you know, one step further. But we actually have problems that are much bigger. You have in this moment a very high impact of the industrial activities on the ocean space. There is an enormous recovery of gravel, sand, and these kind of materials ongoing, dredging for ports, for diamonds, for wind farms, all these kind of things. And the problem is actually much bigger than any pillager can ever, you know, be. You know, you would need half of the population going diving to go treasure hunting to make, you know, such an impact. And of course, we have climate change. So we have the challenge, basically, to bring it down what we can do. And I'm speaking here to the underwater ecologists, right? I'm not speaking now to the lawyers, even if I myself am a lawyer. But what we have as a challenge is, how do we actually make underwater heritage accessible? We all followed this week the Titanic 5 and their horrible fate. What you know, was certainly a kind of you know, a finale to tell us again that it's not so easy to visit underwater heritage, but it also tells us, how do we actually include underwater cultural heritage and coastal heritage in general ocean, you know, discussions. And as I say, and that is a message from UNESCO, there is a lot ongoing. There is in this moment, this is a teeming, really lively discussion ongoing in this moment. The 2001 Convention of UNESCO says very clearly, access is something we wish for. So it's not that we should hide everything and not, you know, let anyone see it. There have been misinterpretations with in situ, like leave everything in situ, don't make ever, you know, a museum. I think we're beyond that. It's very clear. Yes, we also want museums. We shouldn't drag everything out of the water, but if we have, you know, a very good plan and a very good reason, we can do that. If we can pay for it and, you know, and ensure the conservation. But there will be most of the sites still be left in situ. That, however, can be very problematic because, I mean, Felipe, to add to your you know, fury, I have been 2 weeks ago in the intersessional working group of the International Seabed Authority. That is the authority that decides over the exploitation of the area, the seabed outside of national jurisdiction. I was shocked. I was totally shocked, right? There is a try from China to get its hand on all shipwrecks out there, and that is 50% on the space of the planet, in order to get the metal for microchip production. And it was so clearly put on the table as I put it here, right? It was not like we try to be nice or something, right? So just to say, we should be very, very worried. And, you know, the threats are changing. So how can we make underwater cultural heritage accessible? I have to say, honestly, there have been nice things done over the last years. And UNESCO was very active in that. And I mean, you still see our very, very dear friends here on the picture, Pilar Luna, with this wonderful museum that has been built in Campeche, a wonderful museum that has just opened in Cozumel. There is another one that is going to open for Chichen Itza. There is another one that is going to open for Tulum. If you want to plan your next holidays, maybe you want to do them in Yucatan, very, very nice. Also in Dominican Republic, very nice new museum. There is really nice things going forward. You know, and we have here in Europe quite a number of really easy, let's say, accessible coastal sites where access is possible. Not every site lies beside the Titanic, right? You have Baia, Gaiola, Anzio, all these sites, certainly many in Portugal as well. Think about it, right? There is underwater cultural heritage that is accessible. And yes, virtual is fantastic, but it's not the only thing. People do care about authenticity. People do want to see heritage as heritage, not only as a picture. We had quite a lot of these kind of discussions at UNESCO, right? I mean, heated discussion about the restitution of artifacts. No picture won't make it, right? It's good to have pictures, but that is not sufficient. So we have created an initiative, and Arturo, who's here, was the crucial player in this initiative, and best practices to somehow single out sites and access initiatives where we can say this is something that people should take as a model. It is difficult, of course, right? I mean, of course, it should be a protected site that is legally protected and also, in practice protected. But especially, there should be a special and outstanding effort for access. Unfortunately, Portugal just lost its site with a Azores charter that also did actually not really totally fit in. But I hope that we will have soon a new Portuguese site, and I hope to be able to inspire you very much. I give you some examples. What is for the moment inscribed? We have 15 sites for the moment that have been designated. For instance, the Roman barge that has been found in Arles, that is in the museum, that has drawn our attention because it is contextualized, and we very much pay attention to this contextualization. We do not want to see anymore a pot in a vitrine saying pot, right? Heritage is not an artifact. Heritage is an archaeological site in all its entirety, also together with the biodiversity, with its story, with everything around. And that is something that we very much want to push, because honestly, I mean, me living here in Paris, nothing worse than the Venice of Milo, right? You see a statue and all you see is that it's costly and that is actually fostering pillage. So that what we really want to have is contextualization in the museums. We also have in situ museums here at Chinchorro Bank that is close to Cozumel. Fantastic, right? I mean, I was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago with a submarine circling around a shipwreck. Really nice. So that is also something that we want to see. And I can tell you, given that the fishes are disappearing, the underwater cultural heritage will be the only that is remaining. I'm very cynic, but it is actually shocking. When you go to some areas, you don't see a fish anymore. What is also under discussion, right? We have just designated the submerged park of Baia. That has certainly its issues. It's a fantastic place. It couldn't be underlined more how important the site is, much more important than even when you're there, you'll realize how important that site is. But it's also suffering enormously under pressures, enormously, right? Infrastructure, volcanic activity, buildings that have been built over the site barrier, delimitations that aren't correct, etc. So actually, in looking at Baia, we have understood that we have to develop this initiative, right? So there will be missions of our scientific advisory body going to, these sites, 3 new sites that have been designated to figure out how can we actually do better. And I can only say here, looking at you Portuguese, please, why have we no Portuguese expert, that has been proposed to the scientific advisory body? Can only, encourage you. And of course, also the Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes, the recovery actually of, this, bulk of pillaged materials has also been designated as best practice. There's more, there's 15 sites. This is an example, still with our old logo, of one of those designations that states then can use, also with the intention to draw more attention to underwater cultural heritage. And we encourage site managers very much to use UNESCO's name to get more attention. And we hope that will work out. But I mean, there is of course much more to be done, right? I mean, I show you just here, for instance, this little picture. This is the Antalya Aquarium in Turkey. It has now a very nice plane in there. One can say what one wants to say, right? There's certainly things that should still be, perfectionized. But why the hell do we normally only see aquariums that have fishes in there and not one underwater heritage piece? And it doesn't have to be necessarily, in the aquarium itself. There will be conservation issues. There will be, contextualization issues, whatever. You can also just put it beside. But it's very damaging for underwater ecology if all you see is always fish. And people have understood this. When you went, 2 years ago, they had a fantastic exhibition, The Treasure of the Unknown in Venice, a fake, right? It was really like a copy-paste of the excavation of Godio in Alexandria. Godio was very much complaining about this, by the way. But the artist, Damien Hirst, had understood that underwater heritage is much nicer if it comes with some water. And I think that is actually something that we should understand, that underwater ecology loses out if we only put a dry object. Then maybe you could find this in your garden, right? And the water and this environment, that is what makes it actually interesting as well. So this is a possibility to revise existing exhibitions, add the water, collaborate with aquariums, create common projects with biodiversity sites, try to find a way how to permit an inclusive access to terrestrial and submerged sites. And then, of course, you can use visit methods that are virtual and light immersions or, spraying fountains. All that is possible. It just shouldn't be only virtually possible. That's what I think. And I think we actually can surpass all attention given to land heritage. If you go in a museum and everything is bubbly and water and you are submerged underwater, it is so nice, right? Why do we lose this chance to draw attention to this underwater cultural heritage? Also, we have a lot of cultural roots, right? The Council of Europe has cultural roots. The European Commission was very attentive to that. Travel with a purpose, right? Let's go to the wine route, let's go to the castle route, and let's go to the route of the pilgrims. We have no underwater cultural heritage routes, while there were so important routes, right? I mean, think of the Hanse, think of all those Portuguese seafarers that went to the different countries, not always with a nice result. And of course, when you speak today of Christopher Columbus to the Caribbean states, they will make a face, of course. I mean, also with good right. But it's history, right? And there is a lot of, wish, going forward. We had a very interesting exchange with the Association of Small Cruise Ships. They want to have much more underwater cultural heritage sites, travel from one port to a shipwreck to the museum to go and actually, live the history on the ocean. So there is already work ongoing on some of those routes, but there should be much more. And I can only encourage Portugal to do your part. I mean, you have certainly a history out there, right? And also to connect. I mean, Yolanda is here. Yolanda, I mean, you know that, right? I mean, how much actually there can be, shown in connections. And I mean, also, again, to say, do go away from this presentation of cultural heritage as a dry pot in a vitrine. There's experimental ecology, there's virtual reconstruction, there's even, these kind of theatrical presentations. Here you see the Puy du Fou in France, where you see a Viking battle. You have even perfumes where you can actually, smell the ocean. So much more is possible to make, heritage presentable. And I think it's also important that we understand that heritage, as I say, is not only an artifact. We have to widen our discourse. There is an intangible heritage. When we have mariner songs or, nautical traditions, paintings, gender issues, all these kind of things, that is actually also, heritage. And, we should not, just, limit ourselves to coin. And that is actually dangerous to do. So we have to somehow stretch the boundaries and talk much wider about cultural heritage. And that will also help then to integrate cultural heritage into the wider ocean discussions, because then they will understand that this is actually something that people will have to take into account when they talk to people. So, I mean, we have very nice discussions here at UNESCO headquarters. We have the great advantage that we have the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission also at UNESCO. They do everything that's on oceans, and it's not culture. So we have the chance that the executive secretary Vladimir Rabinin is very much interested. And I yesterday lunched also with the head of DUALOS, the UN Department for Ocean Law. There is interest to get heritage a bigger space. And I can only say, use the 2001 convention, do your part, and we are happy to, somehow push this part further up, and to make you heard. There are chances coming. There is the climate change discussions. We will be there in the COP 28, this in Abu Dhabi, Blue Ocean Pavilion. So there will be side events, but of course it cannot be everything. We need to have, considerations on how coastal heritage will actually be impacted by climate change and what we will do. And all that should be done now and very, very fast. And there can be the predictive models being produced to actually come up with emergency plans and to take measures, and that today. There's also the Ocean Decade ongoing, right? Ocean Decade up to 2030. We have a Barcelona conference coming up in 2024, and there's also the UN ocean conferences. That is, that are occasions where there's a lot of, discussion about oceans. Please get to your government, and the Portuguese government is very open about oceans, right? You had just the Lisbon Ocean Conference. So do get underwater cultural heritage and cultural heritage into those discussions. For my part, I can say I am a member of UN Oceans. That is all agencies of the UN that talk about oceans. So I can directly talk to every one of them, but I need you as archaeologists and as a heritage professionals, to tell me what you observe in the wide open and what is actually really the case. We can just be your voice, but you're kind of making your voice louder. That's what we can do, and I can only offer this to you. There is also an enhanced attention for this moment for the area, because there is just the High Seas Treaty being discussed. For those that are not familiar, that is a treaty that should protect some elements of biodiversity in the high seas outside of national jurisdiction. There were big expectations. It's all going to become a little bit smaller, and who knows when this all starts, right? It's not even signed, but attention is there. So that is a moment. The 2001 Convention of UNESCO is already protecting elements of importance to humanity in the international waters, in the area. So actually, you can always say, like, we are already there, to take us serious. We have now 19 accredited NGOs with 2 as observers that hopefully will be soon accredited. We have some 40 universities, and we have access to the UN level. We can come up with large campaigns to better make underwater cultural heritage and coastal heritage seen, known, and integrated. Some suggestions, and maybe you want to discuss this. You could come up with a cooperation network of Lusophone countries. I'm in this moment discussing with Brazil to come up with next year with a regional, a Lusophone meeting for all those states that speak, Portuguese. That will be, of course, Portugal, but also Mozambique, Angola, and of course Brazil, Sao Tome, Cabo Verde. So that might be a nice, idea to come up with something and connect your states. Also, why do you not have yet, underwater cultural heritage museum in Lisbon, close to Vasco da Gama's grave? I mean, such a space. When you're standing there, then you know what the ocean means, right? For humanity. Please do some work here, right? I mean, this is really encouraging. I mind this. You're laughing, Felipe, but I mean, this is very serious, right? I also think you could come up with a common underwater cultural heritage routes. And I also, we are planning to come up with an anti-treasure hunt campaign targeting the US together with Spain, just for your information, right? And with our NGOs, we have quite a number of US NGOs now. So that would be including them. And we're also collaborating with NOAA from the US department. And as you might have heard, the US is now re-entering UNESCO. So we have now a nice, new chance at collaboration. With that, I thank you, and please do not hesitate to ask questions.
Thank you. That was a lot of food for thought. Especially when I'm coming from a post-conflict state like Cyprus. So apologies for not ratifying the convention. We do have some issues with our coastal waters and the zones and everything, but we are trying to do our best. We will be moving forth with the next presentation. It is, we have Ticiano Alves, the director of the EXEA Maritime Museum of Brazil, Alexandra Figueiredo, the program coordinator, the underwater archaeology program coordinator, and Jardel Sténio, a maritime officer at the EXEA Museum. Today, we're going to be learning more about this unique museum. It is the EXEA Maritime Museum is an institution that studies and preserves maritime history. And it focuses on the relationship between human beings and the Atlantic Ocean. It has a collection which includes historical documents, vessel records, maritime routes, shipwrecks, and information on companies and institutions related to navigation. And as a museum, it conducts interdisciplinary research in the areas of archaeology, maritime history, and maritime law, among others. So without further ado, Ticiano, we're ready to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Estão me escutando?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen.
Ok. Eu vou falar em português, porque realmente eu não domino o inglês, peço desculpas. Apenas o inglês escrito ainda consigo absorver. Bom, meu nome é Ticiano Alves, eu sou diretor-geral do Museu Marítimo EXEA, e assino essa apresentação junto comigo, a professora doutora Alexandra Figueiredo, coordenadora do Acordo de Cooperação entre o Museu EXEA e o Instituto Politécnico de Tomar, e também a nossa membra benemérita, e assinam também o arqueólogo Jardel Sténio, que é o nosso pesquisador, que é o nosso presidente do Conselho Consultivo do Museu e científico. Bom, a minha apresentação ela está dividida em 4 etapas principais, que é o Museu EXEA, explicar o que é. Sei que é um termo estranho, EXEA, 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 tantas pronúncias para o mesmo nome. Mas como é uma sigla, fica livre, desde que nos visite, está tudo em ordem. Da ideia à concepção, então como é que surgiu essa ideia do museu, isso é importante para entender esse expandir de horizontes do museu, e a rede de museus marítimos atlânticos, que é algo que a gente almeja alcançar, mas ainda não existe. Nós queremos que ela exista exatamente para esse expandir de horizontes, para essas fronteiras que não existem dentro do mar apenas de forma invisível ou de forma legal, ela possa ser quebrada positivamente, mas através de exposições conjuntas com outros países. Então, vamos lá. O que é o museu? Antes de mais nada, antes que me perguntem qual é o endereço, qual a cidade onde posso visitar o museu é virtual. Então, sendo virtual, vocês podem visitar de onde quiserem, através de um telemóvel, de um tablet, de um notebook, até de um sistema de acesso à internet via TV, é possível visitar o museu. O museu ele é uma instituição sem fins lucrativos, como todo e qualquer museu deve ser. Ele, através da investigação, então, a gente promove uma série de ações que permitem salvaguardar o patrimônio nascido dessa relação do ser humano com o Oceano Atlântico, especificamente o Atlântico, ou seja, o patrimônio cultural marítimo. E aí, entre as várias ações nossas, nós temos também o processo de educar, de estudar, de se aprofundar sobre isso, de compartilhar de forma democrática esse acesso. Daí nasceu o EXEApedia, que é algo que pela primeira vez, eu estou trazendo aqui em primeira mão, falando, não foi lançado ainda, já é possível visitar, mas não foi lançado. É o nosso banco de dados atuais, que conta com por volta de 1.100 páginas de dados que podem ser consultados, desde embarcações que trafegaram em águas do Atlântico, até naufrágios em vários estados do litoral brasileiro, por enquanto Brasil, mas já estão expandindo nossas ações também para a Argentina, e inclusive com uma exposição que mais para frente eu vou falar, que é a exposição sobre naufrágios na Patagônia, da Argentina. Certo? O que é EXEA, né? Vamos falar bem brevemente. EXEA é uma abreviação de Extremo Oriental das Américas, sendo o EX extremo, o E de leste, ou oriental, e o A de América. Então, o Extremo Oriental das Américas é uma abreviação. Segura essa sigla, esse que eu falei, porque mais para frente eu vou explicar o expandir horizontes. Ele é um museu virtual. E aí o que diferencia um museu virtual de um físico é o fato de apenas um ser físico e o outro ser virtual. Parece óbvio, mas não é tão assim. Muitas vezes perguntam para mim, mas o Museu EXEA é um site? Não, o Museu EXEA não é um site. Ué, mas ele não é? Não. Como é que eu chego lá? Você vai botar esse endereço na internet e vai chegar até ele. Ah, então o museu físico, ele é a construção onde ele está estabelecido? Não. Ele não é a construção onde ele está estabelecido. É o que ocorre dentro daquela construção é o que é o museu. Então, o que ocorre dentro daquele site é que é o museu. O Museu EXEA é composto por uma série de membros associados, entre advogados, arqueólogos, historiadores, museólogos, todos compõem essa comunidade científica em torno do museu, científica e museológica, que faz com que ele seja um museu. Da mesma forma, o museu físico pode mudar de lugar, e aquela construção de onde ele saiu deixa de ser um museu, passa a ser meramente uma construção que futuramente pode ser requalificada, ter outra função. Certo? Então, seguindo, esse vídeo, ele traz bem brevemente o que nós trabalhamos, que é o patrimônio cultural marítimo. Não tem um som, ele é só som de ondas, tá? Se não estiver escutando nada, não tem problema. Pode ser visitado também no YouTube, no canal do museu. Então, é exatamente essa relação, esse patrimônio entre o gerado entre o ser humano e o Atlântico, que é o patrimônio marítimo, é o que nós trabalhamos. Seja material ou imaterial, esse é o nosso foco de trabalho. Nós temos atualmente 4 parcerias, e aí elas falam um pouco da nossa quebra de fronteiras, e o nosso primeiro parceiro foi o Instituto Politécnico de Tomar. Inclusive, antes do lançamento oficial do museu, através da professora doutora Alexandra Figueiredo, nós já estabelecemos esse contato para a parceria que foi assinada em fevereiro de 2021. O Museu da Pessoa, que é um museu que trabalha especificamente com o ser humano em si e a sua diversidade. O Google, que é outra parceria que nós assinamos no ano passado, há um ano e pouco que nós assinamos a parceria, que nos permitiu acesso ao Google Arts and Culture, e o Impact, que é um instituto ambiental local, aqui de João Pessoa. Ainda não temos um fruto gerado por essa parceria, mas teremos no futuro. Vamos lá? Da ideia à concepção. Como é que se deu a ideia? E aqui a gente começa a nossa origem. A nossa origem começa em Coimbra. Então, em 2014, a nossa diretora executiva, a professora Rafaela, e a professora Camila Rios, nós nos conhecemos em Coimbra em 2014, e em 2015 propomos um tema para a dissertação de mestrado de Camila, que ela está fazendo em Coimbra, e esse mestrado em 2016 foi defendido com o título Museu Digital Marítimo do Extremo Oriental das Américas. Ou seja, nós não nascemos por causa da pandemia, como muitas pessoas pensam. A pandemia, na verdade, atrasou o lançamento do museu. Então, o museu já existia como uma ideia, já tinha tido um fruto acadêmico gerado por essa ideia em 2016. Bom, a concretização dessa ideia veio apenas em 2021, basicamente 6 anos depois. Não é fácil organizar um museu, principalmente privado, que a gente não tem apoio, que a gente não tem recursos, que a gente tem muitas dúvidas, apenas muita boa vontade, tínhamos dados, tínhamos as ideias, tínhamos algumas propostas interessantes de construção, e em 2019 lançamos o primeiro protótipo, ainda não era um museu, apenas o protótipo, e em 2020 ele já estava com um acabamento um pouco maior, após os feedbacks de várias pessoas que nos retornaram sobre como poder melhorar o museu, e apenas em 2021, após um atraso de 1 ano, nós conseguimos lançar o museu, mesmo dentro da pandemia. Então, o museu está estabelecido como a sede, vamos dizer assim, caixa postal nossa em João Pessoa, capital da Paraíba, e esse extremo oriental das Américas, que faz alusão à nossa origem, é exatamente a Ponta dos Seixas, que está localizado na capital da Paraíba, que é João Pessoa. Para quem não conhece, a Paraíba é um dos 9 estados do Nordeste brasileiro, está localizado ali entre Pernambuco, Rio Grande do Norte, Ceará, e a leste é banhado pelo Oceano Atlântico. Temos uma costa pequena, para as dimensões brasileiras, 125 quilômetros é muito pequeno, mas muita história nos 125 quilômetros. Então, o nosso expandir de horizontes, e aí eu vou ter meus 10 minutos e meio para fechar isso, fácil, eu vou cumprir ao máximo, arrisca esse tempo de 20 minutos, nosso expandir horizontes começa já em 2019. Mas se falou em 2021, vocês lançaram o museu. Sim, mas em 2019, desculpa, nós tínhamos uma visão ainda limitada do que seria um museu. Extremo Oriental das Américas, nós só vamos abordar a Paraíba. Mas, nessa demora entre o protótipo e o lançamento do museu, nós tínhamos que escrever o estatuto do museu. E aí, dentro do estatuto, nós discutimos e achamos melhor tirar a Paraíba e colocar o Atlântico, algo que eu considero até atrevido, vamos dizer assim, um termo mais vulgar, mas algo necessário, porque as fronteiras no mar são fronteiras meramente legais. Então, nós lançamos essa primeira exposição, que é uma exposição que retrata bem essa ideia nossa. A princípio era apenas o extremo oriental. Então, profissionais do mar no extremo oriental das Américas, 1850 a 1950, com documentos que foram cedidos pela Marinha do Brasil, na época o capitão Valdinei Ciola, como capitão, hoje acho que, se não me engano, é capitão de mar e guerra, que nos liberou acesso a esses documentos, que fizeram parte, inclusive, da minha tese de doutorado em Coimbra, mas que eu achei de bom tom trazê-la e publicá-la, publicizar. Eu tive, claro, a autorização da Marinha para fazê-lo. Essa exposição ela não está no ar novamente, a gente tirou para fazer uma releitura, uma reedição dela, mas estará em breve. A costa nordestina no Brasil holandês, nós saímos da Paraíba e começamos a cobrir o Nordeste como um todo. Saímos do século XIX e XX e vamos para o século XVII. Então, ali, através das figuras de Franz Post, das gravuras de Franz Post, peço desculpas, ele retrata o Nordeste brasileiro na perspectiva dele, de ocupador, de ocupante daquele local, e ele retrata da maneira como ele vê. Então, o doutor Leandro Vilar, que é historiador do museu, propôs essa exposição, e essa exposição está disponível no Google Arts and Culture no perfil do Museu EXEA. O nosso primeiro evento internacional foi um curso ministrado com a ajuda da professora Alexandra Figueiredo, com a ajuda de amigos moçambicanos, onde nós fizemos um curso online de duração de 1 mês, salvo algum engano, onde nós contemplamos o patrimônio cultural marítimo desses 3 países. Nós fechamos este evento com 3 palestras. A professora Alexandra falou do patrimônio de Portugal, a nossa amiga moçambicana, que agora fugiu o nome, eu não sou muito bom de nome, mas ela falou...
Yolanda.
Yolanda, isso, Yolanda. Como é que eu posso esquecer do nome Yolanda? É um nome tão bonito. Ela falou do patrimônio moçambicano, principalmente da ilha de Moçambique, que é onde ela tem todos os estudos ali voltados, e o capitão Ricardo Guimarães trabalhou com o patrimônio brasileiro. Então, nós tivemos e fechamos muito bem este evento, que durou aí por volta de um mês, com encontros semanais e com presença de alunos moçambicanos, portugueses e brasileiros. Então, foi síncrono no momento, era online, era ao vivo. Nós adaptamos o horário para que o fuso horário de Moçambique permitisse a participação deles e deu tudo muito bem. Saímos do hemisfério sul, fomos para o hemisfério norte, onde nós, através do grande apoio do Núcleo de Estudos Vikings e Escandinavos aqui da Universidade Federal da Paraíba, nós lançamos uma sessão, na época, chamada Vikings no Atlântico Norte, que aborda exatamente essa expansão escandinava neste período, ocupando diversas localidades que hoje são países que vocês moram, e outras pessoas moram. Eu não, estou aqui no Brasil, não fui ocupado. Pelo menos até o momento não se sabe de nada. Essa sessão vai ser relançada. Esses relançados eu vou explicar para vocês. Nós mudamos de servidor, estamos levando o museu para outro servidor, e aí temos que fazer todo um trabalho ali de web design em torno dessa releitura ou redesign dessas sessões e exposições. Desculpa. Bom, aqui nós contemplamos nessa exposição com o historiador George Henrique a navegação mercante em tempos de guerra, num caso de 2 navios alemães na Primeira Guerra que ficaram apreendidos no porto de Cabedelo, que é o porto da Paraíba. Voltamos um pouquinho para a Paraíba, mas não deixando o contexto internacional, que era a Guerra Mundial, de vista, né? Então, ele aborda, também está sendo feita uma releitura dessa exposição. A cultura das velas em Cabedelo, está no Google Arts and Culture, e aí essa exposição ela tem uma importância muito grande para mim, porque ela começa a abordar o simples, a pessoa que não é contemplada na história tradicional. É o pescador artesanal, por exemplo. No caso, esse é o nosso foco. E como é que a vela está resistindo ao motor, aos motores das pequenas embarcações aqui da localidade, e essa guerra entre um e outro, e como é que ela está conseguindo ainda, de alguma maneira, permanecer, mesmo que seja em momentos como apenas uma corrida, que eles chamam aqui de corrida de caico, que é esse tipo de embarcação que existe aqui no estuário do Rio Paraíba. Então, o historiador Cione Fernandes, inclusive eu tive a grata oportunidade de ser orientador dele, fez essa exposição. Ele é historiador, mas ele era, na época, aluno do curso de design gráfico, então ele propôs essa exposição como produto do curso de design gráfico. Ela pode ser visitada no Arts and Culture. Quando o Mar trabalha, é a nossa primeira exposição portuguesa. Então, através do Antônio Cravo, um amigo que fiz à distância, ainda não tive a oportunidade de conhecê-lo pessoalmente, nós trazemos a chávega. Então, não de forma técnica, não abordando a parte técnica da chávega, mas abordando a chávega do ponto de vista das pessoas em torno dela. Então, o Antônio, ele descreve em versos cada uma das fotos. Essa exposição, a primeira sessão dela, está disponível no museu, pode ser visitado, não é no Google Arts and Culture, é exclusivamente no museu. Segunda exposição, também do Antônio, está no Arts and Culture, que é a Mãos de Chávega. Então, ele aborda apenas as mãos, os calos, a mão suja de areia, de escamas dos peixes. É uma exposição belíssima, eu recomendo vocês visitá-las, claro, todas as outras também, mas eu acho de uma sensibilidade muito grande o registro das mãos. E olha que eu sou fotógrafo, também tenho uma visão de fotógrafo, mas eu nunca pensaria numa exposição desse ângulo, dessa perspectiva. Então, eu acho que todo o mérito para ele. Pretendo aí, quem sabe, no ano que vem, conhecê-lo pessoalmente. E aí vamos para Salinas, em Figueira da Foz, onde o Antônio Cravo traz aí algumas fotografias. Lembrando que tanto a Chávega quanto aqui a Salinas da Figueira, ele retrata ao longo de algumas décadas para trás, tá? São fotos, não são fotos novas, são fotos recentes. Você vê pelas feições das pessoas, pelo tipo de roupa, que realmente não se trata de algo novo. Então, ele traz também isso. E aí, descemos até o hemisfério sul, extremo sul da América do Sul, nós temos a região da Patagônia, onde o nosso arqueólogo Jardel Sténio teve a oportunidade de estar visitando alguns naufrágios e fazendo registros, tanto fotográficos de onde ele está, como de drone. Então, ele levou o drone para fazer registro fotográfico. Essa exposição está sendo relançada agora no mês de julho. E na exposição nós temos 2 naufrágios, mas vamos lançar um documentário até o fim do ano, com entrevistas de arqueólogos argentinos sobre os naufrágios na Patagônia. Então, são arqueólogos realmente especializados naquela localidade e nessa temática dentro da arqueologia. E, para fechar, a minha proposta é a rede de museus marítimos do Atlântico. Eu acho que até o professor Felipe Castro esteve numa conversa prévia sobre isso, junto com a professora Alexandra e o professor Adolfo Silveira, que é uma ideia que precisa sair da ideia, né? Precisa tomar forma, precisa tomar corpo, precisa juntar museus que tenham interesse de se unir para democratizar o acesso ao patrimônio cultural marítimo, para expandir para estabelecer até correlações entre os patrimônios que existem dentro dos próprios museus. E a minha proposta, e fechando a apresentação, é essa, que a gente consiga formar uma rede forte que tenha museus tanto físicos como virtuais, mas que tenham objetivos comuns, como a salvaguarda do patrimônio cultural marítimo. Então, agradeço a oportunidade, mais uma vez, estar no IPT, onde foi a minha casa também institucional, fiz minha pós-graduação em arqueologia subaquática e fui aluno da professora Alexandra. Você é a eterna aluna dela, que eu sempre chamo ela de professora. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alves, for the lovely presentation. You have really shown the dedication and the investment in this virtual museum. And one of the most interesting things I noticed was that you have a network of museums, and you try to engage the public as much as possible. So that is really a very good example for us to follow. So let's open the discussion session. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands. Ulrike and Dr. Alves are with us. So yes, Alexandra, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I will speak in Portuguese, okay? Maria, if you and the other ones, if you don't understand me, I can make a little brief abstract of what I said. But não foi por acaso. I don't know how we say this in English. It's not by lucky. Não foi por acaso que eu pedi ao Ticiano para poder apresentar este projeto que ele tem vindo a trabalhar. Neste projeto, e acho que é uma coisa muito importante, que nós aqui já estivemos a expor, que é o fator de nós podermos criar relações, ligações, conexões entre todos. O Ticiano, como ele bem referiu, ele foi meu aluno. O Jardel foi meu aluno de pós-graduação subaquática. Existem outros alunos que também integraram o projeto do Ticiano. Ricardo Guimarães, que atualmente que ele está na Marinha, foi também nosso aluno. A Yolanda ainda é nossa aluna. Para além disto, toda esta rede, e não estou-me a referir a questões de serem alunos ou não serem alunos, é a componente importante em que alunos se tornam orientadores de trabalhos. O Ticiano já orientou teses de trabalho nas pós-graduações. Transformam-se também em coordenadores de projetos, onde os próprios professores acabam por ser agora colaboradores, não é? E criam redes com os colegas, permitindo que eles se integrem, desenvolvam e criem estes laços com outros projetos que já estão em maior andamento e possam realmente entrar dentro daquilo que é o mercado de trabalho. Esta rede, aquilo que eu falei logo no início, de que era importante que realmente nós conseguíssemos todos nos conectar, Ou melhor, este projeto aqui é um exemplo, entre outros projetos que existem, em que realmente as pessoas podem facilmente ter uma ideia, começar a colocá-la em prática, desencadear um projeto mais complexo e, neste momento, expandir os horizontes, como o Ticiano já refere, não é? Não é só agora um museu que inicialmente lá para a Paraíba, porque é um trabalho pessoal dele, passou a ser um projeto com várias exposições, que eu também vos convido. A apresentação não mostra aquilo que é o museu. Eu peço para vocês realmente explorarem o museu, porque o museu é extremamente dinâmico, tem muita informação, está muito bem feito. Meus parabéns para toda a equipa que está à frente do museu. E isto é um repto também para que todos vocês também se juntam entre professores, entre alunos, sobretudo entre alunos, não é? Criem essas conexões, peguem nas vossas ideias e avancem. Relativamente à comunicação anterior, ela abre-vos portas, vocês conseguem ter a percepção daquilo que são realmente as potencialidades e as preocupações existentes na Europa e que são uma reflexão daquilo que são as sociedades, em termos gerais, de uma forma mais global, que é importante, porque sempre que quiserem desenvolver um projeto, equacionem não só os ODS, não só todas estas prerrogativas, estes critérios, estes pontos que foram colocados pela Ulrike. Thank you, Ulrike, also for the lovely presentation. E que realmente, pronto, podem vos dar as guias necessárias para vocês poderem obter também financiamentos. Obrigada, Maria. Pass to you.
You're welcome. Do we have any more questions for our presenters, either in English, Portuguese, whichever? We can manage. Yes, Dr. Castro.
If I may, I just want to congratulate Ulrike for the wonderful talk. And I really think that it will have to boil down to this. We cannot just think about the cultural heritage, but as something that we need to preserve, but we need to think about the cultural heritage as the soul of a landscape, right? Landscapes have histories, and the histories are geological, and then they are historical or prehistorical or historical. And so it's very, very important, I think. And it is an old idea. So when you look at the landscape, you have to look at the ecology. So, I mean, it's not, I
have a seamless approach.
For a center for functional ecology, they are hiring archaeologists, sorry.
This fragmentation that you're mentioning, fragments versus a seamless approach, I think it lies in how history and archaeology and research on these subjects developed back in the day. It is more, this seamless approach is much more recent. It's how research is developing, it's how academics view it, and they impart their knowledge and their experiences to their students. So it changes. Yeah. We have changes bit by bit. Hopefully we will manage to get the seamless approach, because
we will have to, it's a natural historical process, yes. Right? Archaeology was a hobby of the upper classes. So it's only normal that the organizational culture of most archaeological institutes from the 19th century were personal, and people were looking for artifacts, then they start looking for contexts, they developed the study of languages, and then a lot of disciplines came to help solve the riddles of archaeology, dating methods,
then you have theory of archaeology.
And in the 1950s, people started talking about archaeology as something that would be should aim at explaining the human adventure, right? Archaeology is anthropology, or it is nothing. And now I really think that we need to shout, archaeology is public or it is nothing. Because if it's not community archaeology and it's not citizen science, it remains an elitist situation that we were criticizing, like in Portugal, where you have a bunch of fascists that should be embalmed, because it's been 50 years since fascism was abolished in Portugal. There was a coup, and you still have an organization that looks upon the citizens as if they were subjects, and they dictate, you know, that there is an organization that dares to take 15 years to approve a report, an archaeological report, and nothing happens. Nothing. They change the name, the people are the same.
What you're experiencing, because I live in a divided country still,
sure,
from the 70s, and it is very interesting how the two former belligerent communities take heritage and twist it and turn it to fit their respective narrative.
Yes.
And it's the heritage practitioner's job, the modern heritage practitioner's job, to remove any twists and turns, to give the people a seamless approach to help them participate in their heritage.
Yeah.
There you go.
And respect all the narratives, right? Because, of course, not all narratives are equivalent. But in the United States, I left because I was fed up with how violent the country was becoming. But what was happening was that the left was being as violent, excommunicating people as the right. And we need to include all the narratives. Everybody should count, right? The stupid, the slow, the vicious, the resentful. It's part of the human experience. And I really think that politicizing the narratives one way or the other is extremely dangerous.
Ulrike, yes, tell us. Tell us your thoughts. Share them.
I mean, I of course fully agree, right? I mean, history is always, you know, a contorted story in which everyone tries to defend what he would like us to think, right? That is normal. You know, somehow we'll never get out of this, right? And what I found very interesting is that there is quite a movement in this moment, and this is totally going into, you know, much more practical and less, you know, emotional discussion, is to speak of biocultural heritage. And I found this quite interesting because you see a lot of, you know, push for preserving biodiversity in the oceans or lakes, rivers. You know, they all say like, oh God, you know, all our species are dying out, but somehow no one says like, oh, our heritage is disappearing. And, you know, there was this kind of, you know, emergency communication to say like, let's talk about biocultural. But I see this, for instance, that there are millions offered in, you know, establishing marine protected areas in order to protect fish. But somehow there is not one line on cultural heritage. And that is somehow a task that every one of you have to take up, you know, to put cultural heritage in marine protected areas, to put cultural heritage in marine spatial planning, in every, you know, in these kind of areas. And yes, of course, it will sometimes hurt. There is always some part of heritage that is not comfortable. I mean, go to Istanbul and look what they have done to the Byzantine heritage, right? I mean, when we talk about Cyprus and, you know, there's a lot of heritage that is not comfortable because somehow that is not the moment's talk. But yeah, that is maybe also our, you know, our task to be, you know, reasonable, you know, one step, you know, back and say like, you know, let's protect all heritage and let's try to be, you know, to present heritage as much neutral as possible. But of course, it's always a very difficult task, right? But I mean, just to say, yes, landscapes, but also, you know, you have to still struggle a lot to be even heard. When you look into the UN Ocean Decade, there are 7 objectives for the UN Ocean Decade. UN Ocean Decade is basically all, you know, everyone who is working on oceans today, what they should do, right? And presidential level stuff, right? And there is only one of those objectives that even, you know, somehow is able to accommodate culture, and that is Objective 7, an inspiring ocean. It doesn't even speak about big culture. It says like, oh, we want to have fun, basically. That's, you know, the line. So because we have fun, we like the ocean. That's why we do something about pollution. That's, you know, the communication. But I mean, is this all that what culture is for you? You know, yeah.
I think we can link this to education. I mean, if we don't start educating people from a very young age, it is bound for this experiment to sort of fail or not have the expected results. I have been engaged in maritime heritage education for like almost 10 years, and we struggle I mean, the processes, the bureaucracy, the people in the Ministry of Education not understanding maritime heritage, what it really is about. They are familiar with the Kyrenia shipwreck, but they're ignoring other aspects of maritime heritage. So it is a little bit insane. But again, if we try to educate citizens from a very young age, when they reach the age of going to a museum and understanding what the museum is and letting them engage into, they will be much more appreciative, and they will be much more interested in preserving and protecting and safeguarding what we brought to their attention for future generations to come. Yes, Ulrike.
Maybe I can help you with that. I mean, there is quite an interesting initiative from the UN that is called Ocean Literacy, right? Mm-hmm. And that is done together with the EU Commission. And they came up with a very nice initiative about blue schools, where the schools can choose to be blue and then to work especially on, maritime matters. So why do you not just come up with a little inventory of how many schools are called Vasco da Gama School, or, these kind of whatever seafarer comes to your mind and has ever given his name to a school, and write letters to those schools and encourage them to become an underwater culture heritage blue school.
The problem is, while I'm a civil servant, I wear a different cape from that of maritime heritage education. So although you're in the system, you're also outside of the system, unless you're in that particular ministry, department, etc., that handles that aspect. This is the biggest drawback, this fragmentation and compartmentalization within the government. It is really maddening.
You ask nice people in the room that are not in a ministry and not at UNESCO and can write letters at their leisure. That's what I thought, right?
The first thing I did, they gave me. No,
you raise your hand, so you're volunteering for that. I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. You can count on me. They gave me a center in Coimbra. They decided to make a center for maritime archaeology within the Center for
Congratulations.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was to send a letter to the local museum, because the campus is at Figueiredo, and offer to give lectures in every school and every high school in the city, and then just come up with a PowerPoint and a project that we can print in 2 pages. We did that when we excavated the paper wreck in the 1990s. We just went and
with your work.
wrote books for children, and we managed to get 2 books written, one for high school kids, one for primary school kids. And so these things are actually easy. You just have to, do not have great expectations, right? Because a lot of people are not going to, a lot of people don't care.
If only things were easy. I tried to do a similar thing in Cyprus, and what the answer was to me, it does, your proposal does not fit the education indices and content set for the year.
Yeah, I know.
And I got a rejection letter, like a very polite rejection letter, but they were missing the whole point. So
I know. And Portugal is not, I mean, I'm still waiting to see if anybody invites me, but I've done that in Texas all the time. I went to speak, I brought my little things, my little boat models, and I went to every redneck corner of and do.
I was running workshops for children and like primary school children and high school children for like 2 years without payment, pro bono.
Sure.
And at some point I grew so tired of it, because I was running across the island, and I was like, we don't have something concrete, like a framework. This cannot go on forever, because you're only having a small audience. It should be broader, more targeted, better dissemination. And I'm only one person, and it was in my free time. So again, when you're trying to reach up certain individuals, they either don't have time, or if you're not within an institution.
Being Portuguese, I work like, I mean, a part of a resistance movement. We are very few. We don't all know each other, and everybody's against us, because that's how the Mediterranean world sees change, any change, as a challenge and something potentially dangerous. So what we do is small is beautiful. And then
it also is a bit related to how let's say, top management officials or the general audience sometimes
politicians
views humanities, views literature, views heritage. They don't think these are important. So if they're not important, why should we fund it?
No,
why
politicians are a waste of time. You don't waste time with politicians. I mean, the UNESCO representative
it is really disheartening, though. I mean, I received funding from the Honor Frost Foundation, but I got 0 grants from local, let's say, authorities. And I was like, okay, this says a lot about what we need.
But that's normal, right? The planet is warming and we're all going to die. And Portugal is a country that runs on nepotism. And I don't know about Cyprus, but you have to take that as the environment.
Very similar.
And manage. We cannot change the world, right? If the world could be changed, it would have been changed by now. So I encountered that horrible person that was the representative of Portugal in the UNESCO, and I just held my breath. I did other things. The days are not that long, and now she's not there anymore. She's in a very important government position, and you just have to live with it.
Yeah.
I don't even know her, and she just comes after me. I don't know why. I must have done something. But my point is that let's not try to change the world. Let's try to improve our performance. And I completely despise organizations. They are full of chiefs. They don't never have enough Indians. I despise politicians because the majority are feverish egos, are malignant narcissists. And so what I do is I try to build up. I'm going to revive it as soon as I have a little bit of money. I got 200 people on a project from I don't know how many countries, more than 20. And what we did was create a community as opposed to an hierarchy. And we were just trying to share information and pass along information and ideas. And it's not a project of power. It's just trying to improve, to mitigate. Of course, Ulrike cannot be as negative as I am, but but I am. I really
at least you can't say it, right?
I despise politicians, and I despise. I mean, everybody says this Minister of Culture in Portugal is a great guy. I haven't seen a line of anything good coming from that. The previous one was, I think, not very smart. The other one was even worse. So if we start hoping that people help us, we will never get anything done.
Thank you for your thoughts, for sharing your experiences with us. It is eye-opening, and again, food for thought. Thank you. Ulrike, yes.
Yes, I mean, to give you some positivism in life.
Yes,
honestly,
please, we need it.
No, but I mean, you have UNESCO at your hand, right? We have the 2001 convention. You can use this, right? Just come up with good ideas, and I will be happy to, help you get this in the circles at the UN in New York or at Abu Dhabi, the COP, or the next UN Ocean Conference. So, do not let yourself be stopped only because, there is someone, that is not as original initiative as you are. So, no, but I mean, there is always space for good initiative. And
thank you for lifting our spirits.
No,
we need it.
I mean, the 2001 convention is actually quite useful, right? We have access to all the UN agencies. We have access to the Secretary General's reports on oceans. We have access to everything that the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission does. So do not think that you're alone, and just use this, right? I mean, as I said, you're there as an intermediary. It's for you to come up with science.
It's
and
more
research.
like a feeling of having your hands tied behind your back.
I know that feeling. And of course, and you find this in all public institutions, and that's actually just how humanity is. Right? It is like that, as you say, Felipe. Right? You will not change that. And I think you can only make it, the association of the willing and those that want to change things, and then come up with your best, and also enjoy that. It is a fantastic topic.
Enjoying, never desperate, never despair. And be creative, and work. Like, I just came back from South America, where there was a guy who He's supposed to be an archaeologist, important archaeologist, and he was there with his country's embassy, putting pressure for this treasure hunting connected group and trying to destroy the life of a colleague of mine. But what we do, you just have a beer and think about ways to go around.
It resonates with an ancient Greek saying that poverty makes you industrious.
Yes.
It makes you think of new ways to get around things and still do what you want. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And with those positive thoughts and trying to lift our spirits, if we don't have any more questions, Alexandra, would you like to say some final comments before ending the first day and this session?
Is your day, so make the final comments and close the session. See you all tomorrow. And Maria, you have all the words.
Thank you. Once again, thank you everyone, all the presenters, all those who attended and listened to the lectures for accepting our invitation. This is the first postgraduate students online workshop. Apologies for not for not announcing it sooner, but we live in 5-6 different countries, so it was a nice army drill for us to put this together. We hope you had a fantastic experience the same way we did. Yes, Ulrike, go ahead.
I tried to find the thing that gives the applauding sign, and I think I have failed.
Congratulations, really. This was a wonderful idea, and you organized it marvelously.
Thank you.
You deserve all the credit, not us all the...
Thank you. Omira and I had a continuous, let's say, discussion. Like, if we hadn't texted each other 1 hour at least every day, our day wouldn't be, it didn't feel right. So thank you to all my fellow postgraduate students for making this happen, from designing banners to translating text from Portuguese to English. Thank you for making this for the students like such an enriching experience. We've learned a lot today, from trying to become a freelance archaeologist. Jose, thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic. You gave us a real insight of how much money you need to spend on books. I feel you. I feel you. When I saw the slide on how much money you need to spend on books, I was like, okay, maybe I should post a picture of my bookshelves, like the section dedicated to maritime archaeology. Vanda, thank you for your presentation this morning, with your experience in the field. Ticiano, your museum is fantastic, and the network of museums that you have created. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you. We would love to have you tomorrow with us for the students' presentations, because we are on a tight schedule. I will let you all enjoy the rest of your evening. We will be sending the Zoom link tomorrow again. Feel free to join us. It will be a bit different.
Will be the same. The Zoom link will be the same. Okay,
perfect.
So just to click and enter.
The format will be a bit different. We won't have the discussion sessions in between. We planned the student presentations to be continuous. So thank you all for coming again.
Can I just say one thing?
Lovely.
One last thing is that I might, regarding books, we are on being typed, so recorded, might know of some students that might have a PDF library that they might, I don't know, it's nothing, but
I have a bibliographical database.
So if you want,
I've been building that for like 10 years.
It's
extensive. But I still had to buy many of these books because they don't get published as ebooks. So what can you do?
Scan them?
I have. It's scanned, it's purchased, it's friends having them and sending them to me. We have a network of students.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it makes things easier. Thank you
Wonderful.
all.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful evening. Have a beautiful weekend. Hi, Yolanda. If you're not joining us today, still thank you for coming today, and best wishes to everyone with your projects, with your efforts of safeguarding maritime heritage. And let's move forward and upwards.
And go deep.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I have
See you
one thing.
tomorrow.
Wait, I have
Bye.
one thing before you all go. We
Oh,
have
okay.
a new diving sign that has just been dedicated to archaeological sites by the World Underwater Federation. And that one is that. Do you recognize that?
Yes. Estamos juntos.
That is the UNESCO temple. We were so proud.
Really?
So with that, I greet you and have a very lovely evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Estamos
Good night,
juntos.
everyone.
Bye.
Beijinho a todos.
Até amanhã.
Obrigada.
A todos os organizadores, muitos parabéns. Correu
Amanhã.
muito bem, muito bem. Foi muito
Amanhã.
bom. Até
See you
amanhã.
all tomorrow, guys. Good night.
Good night.